Okay, so before uploading it to your R project, you have to have a look at the data set and how it is formed. You have to have some ideas. That is what I was saying. Right. So we can simply close that. Keep your data file in the desktop. You can have your data file anywhere. It doesn't matter. The thing is, you should know to navigate through, to browse your file and upload it. You should know where it is saved. For the moment, I told you all to save it in the desktop because that code line is then unique to, it's not unique, like it's common to everyone. That's why. So as usual, we open up our studio and clear all these. This is anyway empty. So I open up a new R script. If your R script file is not open, you know how to get it. You can get it from here, or you can go to File, New File, R script. Okay. So first of anything, I'm going to save my file. So I'm going to have it in the desktop. You can have it anywhere you want. So that is lecture 3. Okay, so I'm going to add my code lines here. So what I'm going to do is analyzing the data set. So for that, I have to import the data set to this. So there are a couple of ways. This is the easiest method out of all, and this is most facilitated method. You go here, import data set. You go there, and you have to know the file type of your data set. That's why I told you to save it as a text file. If it is a .txt file, if it is a text file, you simply can go to the first option, from text base, right? If it is a CSV file or a comma separated, it's Excel-like, but it's a CSV file. The extension is .csv. If that is the case, you have to use this. Base means you don't have to install any additional package to read a data set from a text file. Okay, readr is a package name. If you have a CSV file, first of anything you have to install readr library. Then you have to call the library, and then only you can import the data set. If it is an Excel file, still you have to install another library. As I remember, it is readxl. We'll see. We'll handle all the file types throughout the course. So if it is from SPSS, you give this option. It's from SAS, you give this option. If it is from Stata, you give this option likewise. So these are statistical software. I accidentally clicked on that. So for all those, you have to install packages. That's why I'm getting this thing. But for a text file, you don't have to install any package. We are in the base package itself, right? We are in the base package, basically given to any R user initially. That is the base package. So we are in it. We don't have to install any additional library to read from a text document. Okay, so we simply go here and we have to, it usually goes to the directory where R is installed. Usually it is installed in documents unless otherwise specified in any computer. That is the general case. So that is why it is directed there. Okay, so it doesn't have to be always within the documents. I gave it another file location. So my file is in the desktop. So I go to where my file is. You know how to upload pictures to Facebook and all that. So how do you browse it if you are using a PC? Same way, right? I went to the desktop and chose my file. It is appearing here and I clicked on open. When I open that, by default, these settings are set. So this is the input file and this is the data frame. So always when we import a data set, it reads as a data frame, right? Here, the encoding, just let it be automatic. Heading, yes. Why? Because we have headings. What if our data set starts from this only white, black? if our data set starts from here, right, we can say we don't have a heading and see the change. See, data frame. So they take the heading as an observation in that case. This is variable 1, variable 2, variable 3, likewise. Likewise, we have all the variables. So if we give no here, it takes as our data set doesn't have column headings, but our data set really has. So we have to keep it like this. So they take the headings as ethnic, smoking, breastfed, average, age, pre-weight, things like that. Okay. And separator is the tab. Yes, because if you see that file, the separator is the tab key. Okay, they have separated these data from a tab key. So they have identified that themselves. If not, let's say this is a comma separated file, ethnic, comma, smoke, comma, breastfed, comma, age, comma, like that. Comma, comma, comma. Then white, comma, non-smoker, comma. If you have comma separated file, separator, you can go there and select comma. Okay. So here, even you can give white space if it is just one space, right? So this is tab. That was by default, they have recognized that the file has tab separators. So leave it like that. Leave everything else like that. So if you want, you can take just for the moment, keep it like this. Keep everything default. So this is your data view. This is your input file. So what you see here is the tab. This is your input file. Here you can see it is nicely spaced, and this is a good looking data set, right? So you scroll down and click on import. When you do that, yeah, it's okay. So they have automatically run these codes. So see, this is read.dlim. You give the file location. So this is my file location. If you don't know to type the file location, you simply can use import dataset menu. For every menu option in R, there is a particular code, right? You can simply go to your R script and type this. I'm just copy pasting for my convenience. Okay, so this is your reading the file, read.dlim, because it is a tab spaced file. Okay, read.dlim comes when it is a tab space file. This one, you can simply run that. Or if you don't like to type it, you can use this command. Okay, and weave inference, weave, I'll just add it here. You don't have to add once you imported the data set, that is there. If you want to see the file location in the future, you just can copy and paste it in your script. If you want to save all your codings in one place, you can simply copy and paste from the console. Okay, so capital V, this is capital V. Weave, you give this name here. That means you are going to open up the data view of it. So it is showing all the rows and columns, just like an Excel sheet, data sheet. So here they have taken these things as column headings, right? So I'll give you a little time to import your data set. Just try this. So this, don't type this one. This is my computer's file location. It is in C, users, MSI, OneDrive, desktop, and then the file name. Okay. So please don't type this. This is my file location. If you type this, you are getting an error. Okay. Just use this option and try to import your file. because if you have problems in importing, then we have to solve it at this point itself. Otherwise, you can't do anything in today's lecture. And please let me know when you're done. Did you import the data set?
Yes, madam.
Okay, everyone is done, right? No problem. Okay, so when you're done, let me know because I was waiting for you to respond. Okay, fine. So I hope you can see this view. Right, so we are done up to here. The next one is, I want to teach you about the working directory because, before handling this data set. So working directory is the place, the original place that you have your R software installed. You should, basically that is your working directory. Although you save your R script in desktop or any other place in your computer. So if you don't know where your R software is installed, where your software is originally located, you can obtain that by running this code line. So I'll write it get wd, which means get working directory. And you give this and run the code line. So this is the place where my working directory stays. In case if I had my data set in this location, I really don't have to give all these things. Okay, I really don't have to specify everything. I just have to call read.dlim within brackets and within inverted commas. I have to give only this if my working, if this particular data set is saved in my working directory. If it is here, okay. But my working directory, but I can set my working directory to somewhere else. So this is my original working directory. I want to change it to somewhere else. So I would say set working directory. And you have to give the file location. So I'm going to set it to my desktop for the moment. You can give any file location to set, right? when you set that and run this particular code, then your working directory should have changed to this location, right? Let's run and see. See, this is my new working directory, right? It was supposed to be the documents folder, and I set the new working directory to be the desktop folder. And then when I extracted the place where my working directory is, the change working directory, it is accordingly changed to where I gave the place. So if now it is set to the desktop, my data set is also in the desktop. In that case, I don't have to give all these things. Whenever you have your data file in your working directory, you can directly call it by the name and extract. We'll see. I'll just denote it as I. Okay. You can give any name to this. It doesn't have to be the file name all the time. Why I got infants here is because I automatically imported it from this menu, right? This is a name given to this data frame. Okay. So what they take is the name of the file. You can give any name here. Because if you can remember, I copied and pasted this line from the console, right? When I imported this. Okay. So here you can write this. I'm going to import it once again, but without giving this file path, because I know my working directory and the file location, dataset location are the same. So I'm going to give infants.text. It should work. We'll see. Yes. When I want to check whether the file is correctly uploaded, I can simply give this command. View whatever the file that we uploaded. See, we are getting the same thing. So what you learned now was, if you are fed up giving the entire file location when you're uploading a file, have your data set saved in your working directory. Still, if it is too far away, like it is somewhere inside the documents, right? It's, rather than desktop, it's really hard. It's okay. If you are used to go with this, that's fine. You can have your file anywhere, right? The thing is, you have to give the file location. But it is very convenient if you have your R script file saved in the same place where you have your data set. If that is the case, just get the working directory and see whether it is different from your file location, from your dataset location, and you set it to whatever the file location that you want to work. So I prefer desktop, so I set it there. Just because of that, I have my infants dataset saved in this location so that I can directly call it. So I'll have this one saved here and call a data set in this way. That means without specifying the full file path, only if the data set is saved in the same working directory. Any confusions?
Madam, this changing directory thing, is it a one-time thing or?
One time for a single project.
Okay.
But when you open up another project, you have to do it once again.
Okay.
Yeah. But the thing is, let's say you have to, why it is important is, it's not always you are dealing with the same data set all the time. within a project, you can have couple of data sets combined. In that case, you don't have to keep on calling the file location all the time. If you set your working directory to the place which is convenient with you and you have all your files there. So we are discussing a very basic one. When things get complicated, it's very easy to have everything in one folder, one location. In that case, this adds you a huge advantage. That is why we learn this step. Or else you have to repeatedly do this at your convenience whenever you open up a new project. Thank you for the question. So that is how it adds advantage. Any more questions? So I'll comment this for the moment because I'm going to use this one. It's okay. Both are the same. You can use anything. So I'll comment it. Both are correct. Okay. Then, so we have our data set in our hand. Let's see how we call out variables. So just take this variable ethnic. When we type ethnic, we should get an error. Why? Because the object ethnic is not found. What they know is about the data frame, not the inner values in this. They know infants. If we type infants and if we run that, you're getting the entire data set here, the entire data frame there. But if you want to access each and every column or each and every row, or let's say column for the moment, if you want to access a particular variable, you cannot call it directly by the variable name at this point. There is a way of doing that. I'll teach you that next. So if you want to extract this column out of this data frame, what you have to give is, you have to give the name of the data frame and add $, then give the exact variable name. If you run this, you can see the observations under this column. White, black, black, white, white, black. White, black, black, white, white, black. So the entire column is given to you. We'll extract something else. Infants. $. When you press the $, you're getting the drop down. All the variables that you have. So you can choose between, if you want to get the age, you're getting all the ages in the data set. That is how you access columns in the data set. You can try that. But you know, this is very hard when we deal with very long stuff, giving $sign all the time. Let's say you want to add these two values, let's say something like that. So you are going to access this one by infants $pre-weight plus infants $del weight. So you have to write very lengthy lines, and that is, you know, that is terrible when it comes to complex situations. So we should find some way of accessing this directly by the column name, by the variable name, rather than giving the data frame $, that thing. So for that, we are going to attach this thing. When we attach the file and run, now they have access to each and every column in the data set. When we press, even when we type ethnic, see, they are proposing the word, which means they have identified it as a variable. And when we run it, yes, we are getting all the ethnics. But previously, when we type the word only ethnic before attaching, we got an error. Is it there? It is not found. But once we attach the data frame, we can access any variable by its name. You don't have to use the dollar sign. Even if you run this, you're getting the same thing. You can choose either to use this or not this one. The purpose of attaching is we are enabling to use directly the column name. That is what we are doing by this statement, attaching a data frame to access the columns. You can give anything, birth length, birth weight, anything. Okay. But when you're dealing with multiple data files together, be careful to give unique names for these attachments. Sometimes when you attach the infant file, right, you have the variable ethnic there. Assume you uploaded another data set to this script, and that file also has the variable name ethnic. Then it is going to be a mess. Sometimes the system would corrupt, or sometimes they would, when you attach the next data frame, they would give errors. Sometimes they will take the first data set. Sometimes they will take the second data set. So there could be messes. So when you are simultaneously handling files, whatever the file you're handling, keep it activated, keep it attached, right? So whenever you don't use this file, but you still have this in your R script, just remove this attach when you're using the other file. In case if there is an overlap, it is going to be a problem. Nobody can find from where this variable came. Okay, so that is going to be a problem only when you have the same variable name in two different data files, right? So how you do that is you detach. When you run this code, now you have detached, you have disabled this code line. And when you type a variable name, they really won't give you. See, they have erased the variable names from their memory. So this is what detach is doing. If whenever you want to access a variable, you have to use this way. Otherwise, they don't identify this as an object. Just because I'm using this data set only for today and for my convenience, okay, I am going to attach it once again because it's a hassle typing me these dollar signs all the time. So I'm going to attach it and use it. You don't have to copy and paste this again and run. Why I did this was because I'm uploading this file at the end of the lecture. So if I have things here and there should be confusions for you. That is why I repeated this code line here. The purpose of having an R script, maintaining an R script, is you don't have to repeat the things. You can simply click this and run, right? You can do that. So just to maintain the flow, I repeated this line here. You don't have to write it here. You can just select this and run. That is fine. I did this just to maintain the flow. Okay. Now the file is attached. So this is there. You can check whether it is attached. You can type, see it is suggesting. Right. So we are done with that. So the first thing that we are going to learn in descriptive statistics is very basic thing. We are going to have a table. All right. So I'll denote my table as my table. You can give any name, right? The command to give a table is this. Don't have the word table here because that is a technical term. That is our inbuilt function. Okay. So here you can give, say you want to have separate counts for each category of each ethnic group. We have a couple of ethnic groups here: black, white, Hispanic, and so on. I think we have 3. So if I want to know how many blacks are there in our data set, how many whites and how many Hispanic, what are the categories of ethnic groups that I have in my data set, so things like that, we can get that piece of information by drawing a table. I'm not getting horizontal and vertical lines here, but it gives out table format. So I'll type the variable of interest here and run this. If I want to see my table, this is how I'm getting. This is the variable, and these are the 3 categories of the variable, and these are the counts. You can do this to any variable, but make sure it is categorical, otherwise it's meaningless. Let's say for something like age, you have different ages, right? When you draw a table for age, I think it would give you errors. Let's see. I don't think. See, it's giving something very meaningless. You have so many different ages. See, there are many 25 aged people, many 20 aged people. Rather than that, others are all 1s and 2s. So this is meaningless. If you are given a data set to analyze and make a report, don't do things like that just because R enables you to. Because this is a software, this doesn't know what's going on, right? So you have to be selective. That is why you weave the data table like this, data set like this, and see. You usually draw tables for categorical variables to identify the categories and counts. For this type of a variable, you can obtain a table, but it is meaningless. So if you do something like this at the exam, in case if you asked to write a report or anything, then you're going to lose marks because this is not meaningful. Yes, it says age 16, there's only 1 person, age 17, there's only 3 people. But this is not the constructed way of doing a data analysis. If you had age categories, age between 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 50 and above, things like that, then of course that is categorical. So those are categories. This is continuous scale, right? So remember that. So you can draw tables for smoking variable, the best friend variable. Yes, only those 3. Right? So let's draw a table for, smoking. Heavy smoker, 10 people. Light smoker, 9 people. Non-smoker, 49 people. So smoking. It is a categorical variable. It is okay to have something like this. Okay. Why we drew a table? We can either keep the table as it is. So I'll print my table once again. You can give a name to the table and print it like this, or you can simply run this code line. This is the code line. We are assigning it to some object so that we can use it in other places rather than running this code line all the time, and it is very clear. So this is a good practice. You can use this method here. I didn't assign this to anything, right? I just typed this one. But if you want to have this table for future use, it's always good to assign it to something like this. So I'm going to use this one to draw a pie chart. How do you do that? Pie. So when you give that, under plots, you will see a pie chart. This is the basic way of giving a pie chart, but this is, this is not acceptable. Like as statistic people, this doesn't say anything. What you can see is there are more whites, more blacks, and very less Hispanic, but you don't know how much. So usually you have to give either counts or you have to give either percentages of these, right? And also you might have learned this in your statistics courses, when you are representing data in a chart, it is a must to have a title, right? If we have two axes, you have to label the axis. If you are using different color codes, you have to give those legends. So it should be complete. This is just a pie option that you have. So you have to give some other arguments to make this a complete chart. This is the basic one. So if at the exam, if you are asked to draw a pie chart, don't write this because you are not going to get full marks. This doesn't say much. So you have to give some specifications. So let's say we want to have a detail. So this is not a detailed pie chart. It's a very basic chart. I want to have a detailed pie chart. It's very good to have in our reports. So that is, you give the same thing, right? And you have to give some arguments. So before that, I want to compute percentages, right? So in this, what I have is the counts. Let's say I want to have as percentages. So what I'm going to do is, let's give a variable like this percentage. Okay. So how am I going to compute the percentages out of this? I'm going to total this thing, right? And I have to get the ratio. So black percentage is what? 25 times 100 divided by total of this. Okay. So the command given to that is, you use this particular table. So you give my table. When you press my table, it accesses each and every category. Okay, my table times 100 divided by total of this. So the command given in R to take the summation or the total is simply the sum. You can take sum of my table. When I run that line and when I run this, see, I'm getting as percentages. Instead of 25, I'm getting 36.76%. Instead of 12, I'm getting 17.65%. Likewise, instead of these counts, now I have a table with percentages. But still, I don't want to have all these decimal places in my pie chart written here. I'm going to round it off. Okay, so how to round it? I'm doing it at this step itself. Let's say I want to round it for the nearest integer. This is also a inbuilt function in R. This is an inbuilt function in R. This is an inbuilt function in R. Okay, they have done that for us. So if we run this one and then click on %, see, I'm getting the rounded off values. Instead of 36.76471, I'm getting 37. So 37%. Instead of this, I'm getting 18%. Instead of this, I'm getting 46%. So when we add up these things, it should, are they adding up to 100? It should 15, no, yeah, it's okay. So it's nearly 100 because we rounded it off. Right. So I want to add these percentages to this one. How am I going to handle that? So I have the percentages and then I'm going to have some labels. So this is again in table type. This is how you give out a table. So I'm going to have some labels. Let's denote it as LDLS labels. Right? I'm going to use this command paste because I'm going to have a couple of strings pasted one after the other. Okay, you are going to get the names of this. That means the column names of this my table. Okay, so the command is names of my table, right? That thing. Within single quotes, give this backslash and n. It means new line. Then put a comma, and you are going to call. You are going to have something like this: Hispanic in the next line, the percentage. Black in the next line, the percentage. White next line, the percentage. That is the format you are going to give. So you pasted the names of names from your data table, that is black, Hispanic, and white. Underneath, so this slash n means new line. CS people know this. Others, you are going to learn it today. Slash n is the basic command given to a new line. Okay. And you are going to have the percentages. So that is this one. I'm going to copy paste that in here. Right. And of course, you can, so it's pasting only these values. Now you can print a percentage mark. So give the string within double quotes. So this is what you are going to have as labels. And then for the pie chart, so for the detailed pie chart, yes, you are going to extract values from this table, and you have to give the argument labels equals. So this is an argument, right? This is an argument. Labels equals LBLS. When you run that, you are getting something like this. You can customize. Still, I'm not done because this is from these arrows, you can go to the previous and the next chart. Okay, you can use these arrows to navigate. Still, I'm not done because I have to give some title to this. You can give all these at a stretch, doesn't matter, or you can trial and error. You can type these things and see whether it's really gonna work. So how do you give a title? Just put a comma here, right? You call it main. Main equals. For the main title, you have to give the argument as main equals. So within double quotes, you give whatever the title that you want. So it should be a correct title for this. So you can say composition of ethnic groups. A suitable title. Okay, you can give any title here. And when you compile that, you are getting the title. So you can navigate and see. This is the very basic graph that we got. This is not acceptable because this says nothing. Then we had some better chart than the previous one, but still we don't know what this is. Then you can give a title. So there are options to change colors and all that. So it's not discussed on the discourse. You can search and see. Always go to help and search. You can either go here and type, I think see, it will give you. Or you can use this method. Till it gives you this one, right? So it says X means the basic one that you give. That usually it should be a table and labels the names, right? You can even go counterclockwise or clockwise, right? You can change colors. You can do a lot of things. So nicely you can read through. You can change the radius of the pie. Okay, it gives everything here. It gives everything here. Okay, you can either have a border or not. Everything is there. So you can, so these are the basic requirements of a pie chart. So you, whatever the color it is, whatever the look it is, you should have these things, title and these things, or else you can have counts here, right? If you want to have counts here, You don't have to compute percentages. If you want to have, so you can have anything as labels. I'll give it another one label, new labels. So I'm going to have that here. Okay. And I am going to get the names, not the percentage, but maybe the count. So how am I going to access that? You can simply give, I think this should work. Let me try. Yes, you're okay. No percentage mark. If there are counts, no percentage mark. So you can do this. See, you are getting counts here. Instead of percentages, you are getting counts here. So you can try that out. It's just the simple mathematics that you have to do. If you are computing a percentage, if you want to round, you can round. Otherwise, don't round it. That's fine. My table times 100 divided by sum of my table. So for labels, you gave that here. If I want to have new labels, some new stuff, I'm going to have the names of this so that it is Hispanic, black and white. And then in a new line, you can even forget about this new line if you want to have it in a single line and a stretch. It's all formatting, right? It's like typing in a Word document, adding colors, changing font sizes and things like that. So it is up to you. And I just gave my table besides this one. So this is percentages. Now I'm giving my table. That means I'm extracting the count out of the table. So that gave me this chart. So you can customize your chart with the way you want, but it should be acceptable. This is an acceptable chart. This is not. I'll just remove that. This is how you remove the current plot. If you click on this, you remove everything, right? So this is an acceptable chart. This is an acceptable chart, either percentages or counts. This is not that, same thing. This is not acceptable. This is, yes, these two are the same. No, this is also not acceptable because you don't have a title here, right? This is also not acceptable. This is a correct chart. This is also a correct chart. Any questions? There are some handy stuff also. You don't have to plot 3D charts and all that for your exam. If you like to, right? If you like to have a 3D chart, I'll just show you. So before plotting the 3D chart, you have to install a package. So you are going to learn how to install a package today with the help of this 3D chart. This is how you basically install a package. You go to packages, just click on install. Or you have to give install, you have to write install.packages within brackets and within inverted commas, you have to give the package name. The easiest way is, this is menu driven. This has made our life very easy. So you don't have to keep on typing the codes, but you have to know how to install a package. Just go to this packages option, click on install. And you have to have a good internet connection for this. You can work in R offline, but when you're installing packages, you're installing it from the repository in CRAN. So you have to have internet. So you type the package name here. If you are installing multiple packages at the same time, it can be either comma separated or space separated. So we are not going to handle that. So for creating a 3D pie chart, you have to install this package, that is Plotrix, Plotrix, this one. Just install the dependencies as well. Click on install. It will take a little bit of time. Now it is done. When it is done, this sign comes here. When it is loading, a red sign comes here. Okay, so this is how they have installed the package. And if you want to install a package manually without going to these menus, you simply have to type this code line. So I'll add it to the script for you to learn. You have to give the package name within double quotes. Without doing this, you can type this and run this code line. Okay. Whenever you install a package, you have to call the library. Now the package is installed to your machine, but you have to call the library. So that is library. Then you give the package name, that is Plotrix. Now we can access all the functions that is inbuilt in this package. What we were using was the base package. You don't have to install it. You don't have to call the library of the base package, because that is given to you, automatically given to you when you install the software. But all the other additional packages with additional features, because in the base package you cannot draw a 3D plot. It doesn't have that feature. You have to have some additional package for that. Right? So in that case, for all the additional packages besides the base package, you have to do this way. Install.packages, within brackets you give the package name and within inverted commas. And you have to, once you install the package, you have to call the library. You don't have to add inverted commas there, just call the library and that's it. It is compiled. Now the command to plot the 3D chart is pi 3D. This one. So you are going to give my table, right? You can give the same commands, labels equals LB, LS, or even the new labels. Doesn't matter. If you want the count, you can give that. If you want the percentages, you can give that, anything. And you can give them name, copy paste from here. And there's a, yeah, we'll just give it like this. You're getting a 3D chart. This is the command, pi 3D, my table, labels equals this, main equals this. So this is a 3D chart. There's another argument given here. I'll just show that to you. So you can simply do this, right? You can simply give this without any labels, anything. They are giving out this chart. Okay, even the data labels are not there by default. So it's doing its task, but this is not the expected chart that we want. There's another argument in this. You can interchange the order, doesn't matter. You have to have this one first, or else you have to say x equals this. Just have it like that. There's another argument called explode. just give some value here and see. That means if you want to have a chart like this, a distance, if you want to maintain a distance between these slices, you can simply pass this argument. And when you keep on increasing this, let's say something like this, you have far away slices. So it's not practically there. When you decrease it, almost you are getting something very close to 0. This is 0 means no gap between the slices. So let's say x prime equals 1. You're getting something like this. I'll just keep it, even this is very far away, I'll just keep it to be 0.1 or even 0.2, doesn't matter. You can change, and if you are interested in doing a 3D pie chart, you can try and see these things. But for the exam, having a default pie chart is more than enough. But make sure you give all the proper labels and the title. So that is all about pie chart. You have to consider. Any problems here? I'll give you a little bit of time to try this out. Otherwise, it's boring to make it one-sided. Just try some of these codes and see. From here, just try to get it up to here. If you have problems, you can ask. When you're writing the code lines, try to understand what you write. Don't just look at this and type, because anyway, I'm giving you out this R script to look and trial, because you don't have a specific node given for this. I'm giving you this R script and the video also. Just try to think why this argument is here, what is done here, how they have computed the percentages, things like that. Try to extract them to your head. If you have any problems, why this is here, how it's happening, just ask me. I didn't give you time to just look at this and type because you can, it's done. I tried these codes, but there is an error. Figure margins too large. Yes, sometimes we are getting errors like that. Somebody is asking that they got an error, that he or she got an error saying figure margins too large. So which means it is something to do with this. Just try to drag and, maybe you have given some, when you give an argument, maybe these margins are going out of this. So just try to change the window size like this, drag and drop, and run the code once again and see. Sometimes that happens. See, here I'm also getting, when I keep on decreasing, margins too large, some error is getting. is there. So set your margin in a way that the plot could be compiled properly. Just because this is pre-compiled, when I drag this off, it is coming. Okay. Initially, if you had your window like this, most probably, even if you drag this, you won't get the plot. So if that is the case, you have to recompile. If I keep my margin like this, I'll just delete all these plots for the moment. I deleted all the plots that I have. Okay. I have my margin like this. And then let's say I'm going to plot this one. Figure margins too large. And when I expand this, still I'm not getting anything because this code line is already compiled. So if I were you, what I'm doing is I'm setting the the window to an acceptable size and then recompiling this code line. Then I'm getting the plot. See whether your problem is sorted out. Yes, okay, good. So we can get a lot of clues from errors. It's good to get errors. You cannot be happy if you compile everything properly at once. You can be happy, but still you don't learn anything out of it. The more you get errors, the more you learn how to fix those and go forward. Because we are not by hearting these things, we use some reference material. Sometimes we can remember the code lines, the syntax. It depends on the frequency that we tend to use these. So I'm also not a frequent user of this base package plot. So I'm also looking at my lecture note and teaching you all. I'm more into nicer charts than this. You use ggplot2. That is a good R package. It gives you very professional looking graphs. When you're adding things to your thesis and all that, it's better to go with such implements. You can simply Google and get. So within this course, we are teaching you the basics, how to read a chart, how to properly form a chart, because this is computational statistics. You're using the computer, but the statistic norms couldn't be changed. Adding of nicer icing could be done later on. You have to understand the concepts. Okay, so pie chart is done. We'll look at how to plot a simple bar chart. The command is bar plot. Command is bar plot. And let's say I'm going to have the bar chart for this thing, okay, for my table. For ethnic groups, you can have any categorical variable. You can, at home, you have the data set now with you. It doesn't have to be the ethnic always. It can be any categorical variable. You can do the same process which I explained you for any variable. This one, this one. You can import another data set, a new data set like this. You don't have to depend on infant's data set, right? From web, you can download any data set and try this. That is how you practice. Because when you keep on doing the same data set, it is very monotonic and you will get bored, right? So try different data sets. So that is up to you for your independent learning. So if I'm going to have a very simple bar chart, I'm going to have something like this. This is not acceptable because, you know, there's no title, the axes are not labeled, right? So this is working, but statistically, this is not a complete bar chart. So you have to give some other arguments. You have to give a title for this. So you say main equals, you can say, again, composition, or you can say bar chart of bar graph of bar chart of anything. anything you can say. And then you can label, you actually have to label the x-axis and y-axis. In pie charts, we didn't have axis, right? We didn't have aces. So here we are going to label them. So how do you label the y-axis? That is y lab. Y lab. If you are running out of space, you can simply come here and press enter. Nothing wrong will happen. Okay. If you want to maintain some margin, you can press enter. It will shift to the next line. Doesn't matter. Y lab. So within inverted commas, you can give the y-axis. Okay. It's basically the frequency. So you can say number of infants. How many infants belong to black category? How many infants belong to Hispanic category? So that is what this means. So you can say number of infants or the frequency. Similarly, you can give x variables. So you can type x lab here. If this is going out of the margin, if it is a trouble to move this here and there, just take it down in a meaningful way. Doesn't matter. X lab. We can say ethnic groups or ethnicity. What else? Yeah, that's enough. So place your cursor here and run. You are getting the chart. So there are another nice options. You can change colors and stuff. If you want to have these bars, so these are vertical bars. If you want it horizontally, there's another argument that you can give. You give the same thing. Okay, there's another small argument that you can give. I'll write it down there just to make it visible. It doesn't have to be line by line all the time. You can write it even at a stretch, but I can't share that much in my screen because I have increased my font size for you all to see this properly. So that is why I enter argument by argument. It is nice. So the argument is horizontal equals true. You can either keep T or type true. Then you are getting horizontal lines. You have to resize and see the word Hispanic is not appearing properly. Okay. It's okay. Even when you, how do you save these charts? Now charts are here. When you are writing a report, you have to save these charts. So you go to export. You can either save as an image or save as PDF. Save as image. You can select the type, whether it's PNG or anything. You can even change the width and height. So let me increase the height. And you can maintain the aspect ratio if you want. Okay. You can give your give any name to your plot. Say any name. And you can save it. I don't know whether it is saved properly because of the dimensions of this. Let me check. Yes, it's there. You can give any location, browse and give any location. It has saved the wrong chart. You have to expand the windows and get the proper chart. Let me properly do that. I'm still getting this. there's no room. Here, zoom. When you zoom it, you're getting it. You can press on zoom. You are getting the proper chart, and you can right click and save image. If there's a problem in this one, you can zoom it and save the image as desktop. So you can give any name, save. Just because we set the working directory to desktop, you can access it in here. The plots get automatically saved here. This will work if I decrease the size. Does anyone remember how to zoom out?
Control plus minus.
Okay, thank you. Control plus minus. I'll use that. Control plus minus. See, when I zoomed out, this is properly coming, right? Just because I zoomed in, I didn't see this word Hispanic. So you can edit these things. Okay, now I will zoom in, that is Control plus plus. Because otherwise you can't see. Okay. Thank you for that. Right, so this is how you draw a bar chart. It can be either horizontal or vertical. So by default, what does this mean? By default, it has horizontal equals false. That is why when we run this code, we are getting something like this. Okay, when horizontal equals true, we are getting a horizontal bar chart, which implies default value of this argument is false. That is what you can say. Okay. That is bar chart, and even we can plot box plots, right? So we'll see. Usually box plots are done for numerical variables, continuous variables, quantitative variables like this. You can't draw box plots for categorical variables. So basically you can do box plot, let's say age. So this is a box plot. By this you get the middle value, the mean, right? This is the first quantile, third quantile. This is the minimum value, and this is the maximum value, right? But this is an outlier. By dots, they give an outlier. This is how you read a box plot. So here also you can give the same arguments, mean equals box plot of age, things like that you can give. If you want to create a box plot by some other variables, that means by a categorical variable. For it's something like this. You want to see the, so this gives you the distributions are of the distributional shape it gives you, right? So if you want a box plot of age for each category of ethnic group, then that is given like this way. I should change it age by ethnicity. right? So how you give that is age, you give the tilde mark in your left, in many keyboards, it is in your left hand side corner, this tilde mark, you call it tilde, okay? Tilde, you want the age distributions by the ethnicity. So age tilde ethnic. This will give you to each and every ethnic group how the age is distributed. So you can see most of the outlines are coming from this one. Outlines means extreme observations, extreme cases. It's not close to me. It's far away from the general set of observations. So this is age, this is ethnic. If you want to change, say this is ethnic, this is the, by default, this is the variable name in here, right? Let's say you want to have ethnic groups on behalf of ethnics. How are you going to do that? You come here, put a comma, and write xlab equals instead of ethnic, if you want to give it as ethnic groups, you can simply do that. You just force R to have the X label like this, even Y label. If you want to have age in years, then you can simply type this. You can change the axis labels likewise. Otherwise, they are by default, they are getting the column names. So you can do this to plot the birth weight by ethnic group, birth weight by smoking ability, right? Things like that, smoking habit, things like that. So a categorical variable with a continuous variable. So that is about box plot. And histogram. Histogram also shows you the dispersion or the distribution of data. So you can simply type his. Also, it should be given a categorical variable. This is the basic histogram that you are getting. You can change arguments. Density is equal to, let's say, 10. See, you can change these things. No density. Hist gives you the histogram. Histogram and bar chart are two different things. Okay, bar chart, you have a categorical variable here. In a bar chart, you have a categorical variable here. For this category, this much of frequency. This category, this much of frequency, likewise. But in histogram, you have a continuous variable and a frequency, right? So it shows you the distribution of age, the shape of the distribution of age. Shape means the distribution, how age is distributed in this sample. So histogram gives you that. And see, there are no gaps between bars. But in a bar chart, you have gaps between bars. So there are dissimilarities in this. So don't confuse. Histogram and bar chart are two different things. Okay, and then going further ahead, we can come up with some stacked bar charts or multiple bar charts, right? Things like that as well. So it is also an extended version of a bar chart, but when you have two variables of interest, right? When you have two variables of interest, you can plot those things in multiple bar chart or stacked bar chart. So I'll tell you how to do that. So if you have two variables, you have to have a two-way table. So this my table is a one-way table now. My table, it has the counts of ethnic group. But if you are interested in getting a table of counts of ethnic group combined with some other variable, so that is a two-way table. Two variables incorporated at same time. So I'll write it as my table one, new table. Okay. Table, I'm going to have two variables involved. So I'll give ethnic and let's say smoking. It's something like this. I have whether a heavy smoker, light smoker, or a non-smoker. In this as a column variable, as a row variable, I have the ethnic group. Right? You can even interchange these things. So always you give the first argument as the row variable, rows, columns. Okay. Second argument as the column variable. So you have a table like this. So this means what? You have 3 observations for black heavy smoking. You have no arguments for Hispanic light smoking. 11 means you have 11 observations for Hispanic and non-smoker category respondents. So you have to have something like that in order to plot a stacked or a multiple bar chart. So it's the same argument as the bar chart you have to give, right? You have to have the table first, and then you type bar plot, right? You can give the table name, right? And then you give all the necessary stuff. Say ethnicity and smoking habits. You can have the data labels and so on. I'll just leave it like this for the moment. See, I'm getting heavy smoker, light smoker, non-smoker. So you have to have data labels. I didn't put because the time is going. So if you are asked to do a stacked bar chart, make sure you have the main, make sure you have all the access labels and stuff. You know how to do that. Same thing. I'm just showing you different types of charts. Okay, see. So by smoking habit, they have stacked on top of each other the ethnic, right? And still this is not very complete because we don't know what this dark gray really refers to. We don't know whether it is black, Hispanic, or white. This is not complete at all. This chart is useless, right? So how do you give that thing? I'll just write it down here. Legend, you call it the legend, okay? Legend equals, so you have to have the column names, sorry, the row names of this table. So this is the table now. We have heavy smoker, light smoker, and non-smoker as our column name. So that is there. We want to see whether this is black, white, or Hispanic. We don't know the categories. So we are going to have it separately as a legend. So these are the row names of this table. So it's going to be row names of my table 1. So you can edit this actually. This is very big, you know, this bar is concealed from this. So there are a couple of ways of arranging the position of the legend. You can Google and get if you want. See. You will learn how to Google also. Let me check. So this is the command. Within bar plot, you give legend, and within that you give whether it is top, right, or whatever it is. Let's try that. Legend. So I'm going to have it, it's better to have it somewhere here. So I'll place it as top left. Yeah, so I'm getting the same. What happened? Okay.
Madam, මෙතන කමා එකක් නැහැ.
මෙතනද?
Ethnicity and smoking habits.
එතන මම කමා එක දැන් මේ මැකුවේ. බලන්න මම හිතන්නේ ඒක separate ආ විතර. හරි නේද? So this is how you get. So you give the bar plot. Thank you for trying to help me. So you give the table, the two-way table. You call this the two-way table. Okay, and then yes, you printed that. Then you give the bar plot. So this is just one statement. Okay. Bar plot, and this particular bracket has to be closed here. I thought I have to give this legend command also inside this bracket. That's what I thought. That's why I gave a comma and put that thing there. So this should be given separately. So when you compile this line, you are getting this bar chart, and whenever you compile the next line, you are getting the legend where you want on the bar chart itself. So let me clear this back again and show you. If I compile this line, I'm getting a bar chart, right? Let me compile this line back again and then compile this line. See, in the previous chart, I didn't get anything. Next chart, I got both the things. right? You don't have to do it. Like if you want this legend on this chart itself, it's just a matter of compiling this line and then this line, because you are getting it on top of this. Right, so that is when you want to place the legend in whatever the place that you want. So the keywords you could Google and see. So it had top right corner, but we don't want to have it in top right corner because this is going here, right? It's overlapping. So I should choose a suitable place to give the legend. Just see if you think, if you want to have black, Hispanic, white here as your X labels, and heavy smoker, light smoker, and non-smoker as stats, then how are you going to do? I'll handle it separately. I'll take it as another table. I'm going to teach you transpose, okay? So I'll name this as 2, okay? Same thing. So I have rows as ethnic, columns as heavy, light, and so smoking habits as columns. Then what I want is to construct the bar plot by transposing this, because they are, can you see, they are taking the column names as the x-axis, but I want, what I want is to have the row names as the x-axis. So that is possible if you transpose the rows and columns, right? So how do you do that? You place a simple T here, put a bracket. Simple T within brackets, something, some table name means you transpose the rows and columns. Just compile only this one and see. Let's compile this line and see. See, I have got the transpose table. So I'm going to add this one here. And I plot the bar graph. So it's this. So here you can place the legend anywhere. So it's coming somewhere here. It's okay because you don't have a cutoff point. If you want, you can place it even in the center. I don't know whether center command is working. It's working. So top center. I don't know. So these are the things: bottom right, bottom left, left, top, top right, right, center. So those are the options that you have. So whenever you get a thing like this, if you can't place your legend on a suitable place, try to transpose the table and see if you can go for something better. So that is how you usually do, because we are using the basic R here. When it comes to ggplot2 and plotly and stuff like that, these are nothing. You can give X and Y coordinates actually. If you want to have the legend here, you can. Even here, 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 you can. So these are very limited to bottom right, bottom. So these are very limited. When you use advanced packages, you can give X and Y coordinates to place this legend. X coordinate 6, Y coordinate 125, you're getting something here. So just forget about that for the moment. We are not doing that far. But whenever you are given a data set and you are asked to draw a bar chart, let's say, you are not directly asked to draw a bar chart most of the time. So do something suitable. If that is the case, you can try transposing the tables in a better way and place the legend. Even the legend size could be changed. There should be some argument for that. When you can decrease the size of this. So that is up to you. I just wanted to teach you how to transpose a table. So this transposing. It's better to have in here. Even top left is fine. Yes, it's coming over there, so it's better to have it here. So I'll clear this. I'll leave it like this because this is readable. This bar is readable. And this is also not complete. You have to say what Black, Hispanic, and white means. So you have to add your X label and you have to add your Y label. Count of these, count of number of infants, something like that. Okay, so that is it. Then what else? Multiple bar chart. So this is stacked bar chart. I'll write it here. Okay, just like that, we can look into multiple bar chart. Same concept. The thing is, you are not getting it as a stack, you are getting it side by side. For example, let's take the same example. This one. So I'm copying and pasting the entire code lines here, but you don't have to. Just because you are using an R script, I'm doing it because you have to have a nice note. That's why I'm doing it. So here, everything is fine. What you have to change is this. You have to add another argument to this particular line. Okay. Put a comma. The argument is beside equals true, which means by default this beside is equal to false and you're getting a stacked bar chart. So let's compile this and see. You can, it's better making this center now. No, not even. What do you have bottom? No. Yeah, it's way better. So we can have something like this. Same thing. So you have to name X label and Y label. Same thing. Instead of stacks, you get a multiple bar chart. Another name given to this is cluster bar chart. So I'll write that name as well. So you can see clusters. Still, you can interchange these two. So see, like there are so many ways. Say you want this one. So if you want the column names, you can say col names. If you want the row names, you can say row names. Did I give the right thing? No, this is is it the same thing? No, right? This is wrong. Now it's correct. Yeah. Earlier code was wrong, right? I have so I have gotten the transpose and forgotten to interchange this one, right? So you draw the bar plot. Here you have just because this is a transposed one, you always get the column names here: Black, Hispanic, and white. And as legends, you should have the other variable, ethnicity. Smoking habits. So when you're giving the legend, it should be the column names, the row names. So this is 2. Actually, this one. This is the transposed version of table 2. What we have here is the column names. So these should be the row names. That is how you argue. Just place the legend where it is necessary. Let's look at this. We have, we are using this one, this table. Here we have gotten the column names. Always we are getting the column names as the x-axis. We have the column names, and we want to have Black, Hispanic, and white as this. So which means the row names. So you can have either of the graphs, even in this way or this way, whatever you are interested about, however you are interested about. And depending on the way you give out the chart, you have to interpret. So that is about the multiple or the cluster bar chart. Then regarding the scatter plot, scatter plots are usually drawn to show the relationship between two quantitative variables, basically two continuous scales variables. So you can take any of these variables, but not these ones. We don't draw scatter plots for categorical variables, right? We can't. If we do, we will get horizontal or vertical lines, right? We'll do 1 and see. So the command is plot. Let's say we want to plot the birth length and birth weight. Birth length. So these are the variables in our data set. Always give your x variable first, and then birth weight. Right? You are getting scatters. Here also you have to give the title. Okay, main equals your title. I'll just generally give that. What happened? This one. A scatter plot between birth length and birth weight, something like that. Okay. So even here you have got some simple scatters like this. So you can change the plotting character, right, in the way you want. So always give the x variable here, y variable here. So how do you do that? So this is the default one, right? If you want to change, you give PCH equals to, just give a number. So this is, I think PCH equal to 1. So that is default. Okay. PCH means plotting character. Plotting character. If you give 2, you are getting different characters. Some other character. Give 30 or something. Oh, you don't have. And you are getting a different character. Right? I don't know whether there are 20s. Yes, a different character. Usually this is the character that we use in a scatter plot, usually. So you see some relationship between these two variables, a positive, moderate positive relationship between the two variables. You can even interchange, so make it in a way that it makes sense. If you want to plot all the continuous, all the quantitative variables in one graph, right? You have to, so what are the quantitative variables in this data frame? Starting from age to time nut. These are also a continuous variable. So we have to extract these from the data frame first, which means you have to get rid of these, right? How are we going to do that? So our data frame is what? Infants, right? So let's say we are going to extract data. I'll say quantitatives. Let's give some name for that. Quantitatives of our data frame. So what I'm going to do is, this is also again a data frame, right? So data dot frame, out of infants, I'm going to extract whatever the variables that I'm interested about. So age is there. What else? Age, pre-weight, del weight. You can give any number you want. You can even stop here, or you can give everything. Time, not. Let's have only this, right? You have all the quantitatives. So if you weave this is a data frame now. Just like infants, this is a data frame. If you weave this, you are getting something like this. You have excluded all the categoricals and some quantitative variables as well. Let's see. Let's take these 4 for the moment. Then I'm going to plot that. Okay. The command is pairs. Pairs. I'm going to give this name as the first argument. So let's plot that and see. You're getting something like this. You can change the title as you want. You can change the plotting character as you want, right? You can do anything. By default, you are getting, you call this a matrix plot. Okay. It's sort of a matrix, right? So age versus age, it is just one. This axis age, this axis age. No use. No. This axis age, this axis pre-weight. So this is the scatter plot between age and pre-weight. This is also the scatter plot between age and pre-weight. Age and pre-weight. So these plots are identical. When you go along the diagonal, this and this are identical. This and this are identical. This and this are identical. Identical means exactly the same. This and this are identical. Why? Because this is age, this is time now. Even this is age and time node. So this one and this one are the same graphs. It is the same. This one and this one is identical. Okay. So you don't have to consider the down part or the up part, right? So this block is the same as this block. It's sort of a mirror image along this line. So if you are interested to see which variables are highly correlated, you can see, right, this one. Or you can refer to this one, same thing. What are the axes? Del weight and pre-weight. Pre-weight of the mother and the delivery weight of the child, infant. So these are very, it's highly correlated. So things like that you can observe. Either you can draw scatter plots for each and every variable separately. That is one option. If you want to get a summarized idea on all the plots at once, you have to use this method. So you can then extract whatever the things that you are interested about. So that is how you draw the matrix plot. And there is one more plot, and we can stop from there today. One more plot to discuss. Same, the scatter plot is the same. That is the conditional scatter plot, conditioned on some variable. So I'll write it as scatter plot of two variables conditioned on another variable. So the command is this: conditioned plot, CO plot. Okay. And within brackets, you have, let's say you want to plot the birth weight and age given the ethnicity. Ethnicity is given to you. You are going to categorize it by ethnicity, right? And you want the plots between birth weight and age. That means we have three ethnic groups: the white, black, and Hispanic. We are going to extract all the white people from the data frame infants and then plot between birth weight and age. Okay, we are going to extract all the black people from the data frame and then plot birth weight and age, birth weight versus age, something like that. Okay, so that is what you call a conditioned plot. The scatter plot is conditioned on a qualitative variable or a categorical variable. So how you give that is, you give the first variable here, birth weight. Those two should be quantitative, and age. So you use the vertical line which is near the enter key in a basic keyboard. Usually with the shift you have to give that, and then ethnic. You are getting something like this, and it is very important to learn how to read this. Okay, I'll comment it here, please. This is a special note: reading the CO plot. It should be always read from left to right and bottom to top. You might be wondering what this is. So how do you determine out of these three plots? Of course, you know, one of these is going to be black, one of these is going to be Hispanic, and one of these is going to be white. Okay. Anyway, the y-axis is birth weight. You always give y tilde x. Okay. Y tilde x. Y-axis is birth weight. X-axis is age. If you take this one, among these three, how are we going to determine which ethnic group this is belong to? So you use this rule: left to right. So left to right, bottom to top. Okay, so this is going to be the black plot. Okay, so this is red left to right. This is red bottom to top. Okay, so the leftmost one is black. Okay, leftmost one is black. Here the leftmost one is either this one or this one. So one of these two should be black. What is the priority order? Bottom to top. So out of these two, which plot is bottom? This plot. So which means this one, the first plot is going to be, this plot is going to be blacks. This one is black. Then the next one is Hispanic. So out of these two, first left to right. So which is left out of this one and this one? Which is the left plot? This one, right? And which is the bottom part? This one. So we always have to go left to right, bottom to top. Okay, so left to right in this, bottom to top in this. So this is gone now. This plot is for this one, right? Then bottom to top. Which one is bottom? This one. So this particular one is going to be Hispanic. Then the rest leftover is this one. Again, left to right. We are going to assign black first, right? Left and bottom. We give the first priority to left and bottom. So it is this, right? Here we have both left and right. So what we give is top or bottom. When we compare these two, one is left, one is right. But still one is bottom, one is top. So we give priority to that. Because this is in two different levels. If we compare these two, it's in the same level, right? We check whether it is left or right. But if we compare these two, we give priority whether it is top or bottom, right? In that case, bottom, we give the first priority. So this is the next one. If this is the first one, this is the next one. So if we have four things, it is going in this order: this one, this one, this one, this one, like that. Okay. So basically this plot is for blacks. This plot is for Hispanics, and this plot is for whites. That is how you read the plot. Okay. Let's stop the lesson today here today. So that is it for the moment. So let's discuss a few more about the tables. I think we discussed the tables as well, and carry on with some regression next week. Next week, most probably we won't be having any lectures, but I'm not very sure. Most probably we won't have. I will put a notice in the LMS, so just check before coming. Thank you very much for participating in today's lecture. If you don't have any doubts, you can leave the meeting. Thank you and stay safe.